The chamber was vast, lined with obsidian marble and gold leaf etchings that depicted the Empire's triumphs across 1,000 worlds. Light poured from crystalline arches, casting long shadows across the polished floor. In the center, encircled by tiers of hovering delegates and war ministers, stood a single figure clad in tarnished armor, General Count Vorik. He looked out over them, so young, so certain, so doomed. "I led the first expedition to Earth," Count said, his voice gravel-thick, each syllable deliberate. 200 years ago. We thought it was a feral world. It was not. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some chuckled. A few whispered to aides. None listened. Count's only audience of worth sat across the arena in a sleek black uniform. Lord Commander Kael'thar Velmer, the Empire's newest war hero. He lounged in his seat, fingers steepled beneath his chin, expression unreadable. Count continued. They have no orbital fleet. No formal military comparable to ours. But they fight with imagination. With cruelty that doesn't come from malice, but survival. That is what makes them dangerous. Dangerous? Kael'thar finally spoke, his voice sharp and smooth like honed glass. You speak of a race that hasn't left its own gravity well. Their world is poisoned by their own hand. They burn carbon like primitives and communicate with memes. They made war an art, Count said. Not honor, not strategy, art. They don't conquer. They break what they cannot control. And they don't stop. Spare us the dramatics, a senator from the outer belt muttered. This is a planet of ungoverned bipeds. They bombed their own cities for political theater. Yes, Count said. And they laughed while doing it. A pause followed. Unease, brief and shallow, fluttered through the room like a passing insect. Then Kael'thar stood, tall and flawless in his regal posture. You were once a hero, General, he said, walking the inner ring. But now you sound like an old soldier chasing ghosts. The Empire spans 600 star systems. We have pacified worlds with fleets smaller than a single Terran continent. What you faced was an anomaly, not a threat. You'll find no anomalies on Earth, Count replied. Only patterns we never learned to see. The vote commenced moments later. Operation Iron Leash was authorized, full annexation of the Sol system within 90 standard days. Earth would be rehabilitated, its governance replaced, its population folded into the Galactic Order. As the chamber emptied, Kael'thar approached Count. You should rest, he said with a faint smirk. You've earned your retirement. Count stared into his eyes. You won't make it to the second month. Later that cycle, Count stood alone in his private observatory high above Veltraxis Prime. Through the glass dome, the stars shimmered like ice caught in sunlight. Among them, a cluster of ships, his former fleet, moved toward the edge of the galaxy, heading for Sol. He activated a terminal. A hollow map of Earth shimmered to life, mountains, oceans, cities bristling with ancient tech and silent defenses. Count magnified a region labeled Syria. The scars of war remained visible even from orbit. Yet cities stood. People endured. They always did. His former aide Karaz joined him. They voted, Karaz said quietly. Unanimously. They always do. You'll be blamed if this fails. Count turned away from the map. It will fail regardless. I just wanted to give them a choice. 2 weeks later, the Imperial invasion armada entered Sol. Aboard the flagship Vindicator, Kael'thar oversaw first contact protocols. Broadcast to the surface. Multiband, Galactic Standard and adapted local dialects. Project a message of peace and guidance. The transmission echoed across Earth's airwaves. Citizens of Earth, you are now under the protection and governance of the Galactic Empire. We offer peace, technology, and unification. Submit and prosper. There was no response. Hours passed. A second signal was sent. Still silence. Then, from orbit, the Empire noticed an anomaly, an obsolete satellite activated over the Indian Ocean, unmarked, off-grid, cold for decades. It emitted a simple transmission. Binary. No symbols. No encryption. Just numbers. Coordinates. Kael'thar frowned. Is this a response? Possibly a test, a technician replied. Shall we investigate? He nodded. 3 scout ships descended. 30 minutes later, contact was lost. Sensor feeds showed nothing, no explosions, no radiation spikes, no atmospheric anomalies. Just static. Then blackout. Kael'thar stood in silence, jaw clenched. Recover them, he said. We can't. There's nothing left to recover. Keln watched from a private relay station, far from the Empire's intelligence net. The signal he intercepted was clean. Human. Controlled. He closed his eyes, remembering. 20 ships. A bright blue sky. Then fire. Then screaming. They remember us, he whispered. The next day, Kael'thar convened his generals aboard the Vindicator. This is not war, he said. This is defiance. Primitive, desperate defiance. He stood at the center of the command deck, 1,000 displays flickering around him. We proceed with Phase 2. Drop pods to all major cities. Show of strength. No live fire unless provoked. Let them know who rules now. Understood, Lord Commander. The deck vibrated as thousands of invasion pods launched, metal seeds streaking toward Earth's surface. In his darkened room, Keln Vorik sent one message. It was addressed to Kael'thar, encrypted and personal. They will not respond to threats. They will not answer your calls. They will not come forward with surrender. They are not afraid of you. They are watching. Waiting. Preparing. You cannot leash a hurricane. He did not expect a reply. None came. As the pods began to breach Earth's upper atmosphere, something peculiar happened. Several satellites, not military ones, reactivated. An ancient constellation of civilian networks blinked online, repurposed for something else entirely. One final probe captured Earth's surface from orbit. The cities were not lighting up in alarm. They were going dark. And as the first wave of troops began to land, the storm finally began. Earth had listened. Now it would speak. The drop pods hit Earth's surface in silence. No explosions. No alarms. No resistance. They embedded into soil, asphalt, rooftops, emerging with hydraulic hisses as hatches opened to release armored Imperials into stillness. Commander Tralek of the 7th Shock Division stepped onto a rooftop in what humans called Sao Paulo. Thick humidity clung to his breathing membrane. His soldiers fanned out in formation, plasma rifles humming, but the streets below were empty. Not a vehicle. Not a pedestrian. Not even birdsong. Thermals? He asked. Too many to count, replied his sensor officer. But all underground. Sewer systems. Deep basements. They're watching us. Tralek narrowed his eyes. Deploy drones? I want a visual sweep. A squad of insected scouts zipped into the sky, skimming the concrete jungle. Their feeds began transmitting. Then static. All at once. Within 60 seconds, the entire squad vanished. No impact data? No traces, the tech whispered. Something took them out. Precisely. Tralek raised his rifle. This is wrong. We should fall back in. A hiss interrupted him, barely audible. Then the roof exploded beneath them. Across the globe, similar scenes played out. In Shanghai, drop pods were swallowed by collapsing tunnels. In Nairobi, squads were hit by invisible snipers, shots that came without sound, without heat signatures. In Chicago, Imperial walkers stepped onto bridges rigged with explosives, only to collapse into rivers that surged with electrical traps. They weren't facing soldiers. They were facing a planet prepared for an extinction event. Kael'thar watched the feeds aboard the Vindicator. At first, his expression remained impassive. As if this was turbulence, an annoyance. Then one live stream cut to a battlefield outside Istanbul. A group of humans had cornered an Imperial squad in a park, herding them like cattle with gunfire and firebombs. The Imperials tried to take cover behind marble statues. The humans set the statues on fire. Screaming erupted. A soldier broke ranks, running for cover, only to be tackled by something with claws. Not a beast. A dog, wrapped in ceramic armor, teeth wired with copper. It dragged him back into the smoke. Kael'thir turned to his aides. "Is this standard warfare?" "No," one replied, pale. "It's calculated madness." In the Empire's war archives, Earth had been labeled as culturally fragmented. In truth, that fragmentation had forged centuries of conflict, trial by fire across every continent. Human war was no longer linear. It was personal, creative, obsessive. Sergeant Varon, stationed in Manhattan's outer sector, made his final log entry. "They used trash to make bombs. Paint to blind sensors. Kids with kites to lure drones into nets. I watched a woman strap grenades to pigeons and laugh like it was a sport. They're not just defending, they enjoy this." His squad disappeared that night. Only the recording survived. The first public message from Earth came not through diplomatic channels, but through hijacked Imperial comms. It began with static. Then a male voice, mid-30s, calm, slightly amused. "You expected submission. You expected fear. We are not afraid of aliens. We're afraid of running out of coffee. You came with rules. We have none. You came in peace? You should have come with gods." The signal cut off with laughter. On Veltraxis Prime, Count Vorik sat before a holoscreen in a darkened room. The glow highlighted the lines carved into his skin from years of command, loss, silence. Kharas entered behind him. "They're reporting hundreds of casualties. Entire battalions gone." Keln didn't look away. The screen showed footage from Earth, an alien soldier screaming, lost in a maze of mirrors. Human children flashing lasers to mislead him. Explosions. Screaming. Silence. "They're playing with them," Keln said. "Testing responses. Mapping fear." Kharas whispered. "Do we stop it?" Keln shook his head. "We don't stop a forest fire. We contain it, if we're lucky." Kael'thir, meanwhile, doubled his forces. "Send everything. They want war? We give them war." His command deck echoed with sharp affirmations, but eyes were less certain now. "Authorize orbital surveillance. Jam all human transmissions. Full spectrum denial." Aide after aide nodded, yet something felt off. The air smelled of hesitation. That night, Kael'thir's personal security team found a message etched into the outside hull of the Vindicator. A breach no alarms had registered. It read, "You can't jam what we don't transmit." In a refugee station orbiting Jupiter, an alien medic named Soren recorded the wounded arriving from Earth's surface. "They don't bleed," he said, shaking. "They leak. Acid. Spines. Booby-trapped uniforms. One human bit off her own fingers just to escape restraints and stabbed my nurse with the bones." He paused. "She smiled when we sedated her." Human warfare wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The Empire's communication hubs began receiving edited video clips, Imperial soldiers crying, failing, running. Some real. Some fake. All convincing. One viral transmission showed an alien captain begging to go home as laughter echoed in the background. Another showed a human feeding a captured alien, and then detonating the room seconds later. Soldiers in the fleet started to whisper. "Why are we here? Why didn't we listen to Vorik?" Keln sent another encrypted message to Kael'thir. "What you face is not insurgency. It is deliberate insanity. They don't want to win battles. They want to make sure you never sleep again." No response came. But Keln knew he was reading them. By week's end, nearly 30% of the Imperial ground forces had been eliminated or lost contact. Hundreds of ships remained in orbit, powerless to understand the battlefield below. In a quiet sector of the Andes, an Imperial supply ship was raided by 5 humans on bicycles. They killed the guards, stole everything, and left behind a message carved into the wall. "Next time, bring snacks." Kael'thar convened another war council. His eyes were bloodshot. His fingers trembled. "They are pests," he said. But no one spoke. The data was clear. This wasn't pest control. This was systemic collapse. On the ground, firestorms raged where cities once stood. Not because humans had been defeated, but because they chose to burn their own ground to deny the enemy. A captured human officer, blindfolded and bruised, was asked, "Why are you doing this?" He smiled. "We've been preparing for aliens for 50 years. Just didn't think you'd be this stupid." Back in orbit, the Vindicator received a final transmission. A single sentence, transmitted across every channel in the Imperial fleet. "You came to conquer. You've just been enrolled." Followed by coordinates. To nowhere. Earth had learned its enemy. The Empire had learned nothing. And the galaxy had just begun to notice. Veltraxis Prime burned, not with fire, but with panic. The war footage had leaked. Someone, maybe Keln, maybe someone else entirely, had decrypted and broadcast the raw streams across the public datanets. Families watched their sons beg for extraction from Earth's surface. Mothers wept as their children were consumed by fire or vanished into the shadows of human cities. Fathers petitioned the council. Students rioted in the learning towers. Senators shouted over one another, demanding answers the military refused to give. Across the Imperial core, cracks had formed, not in structure, but in faith. They had believed themselves untouchable. Now, they couldn't even explain the war. Keln Vorik moved through a forgotten corridor beneath the old strategic archives, his cloak trailing across dust. The guards didn't stop him. He had been declared an enemy of the Empire, yes, but nobody had come to arrest him. They were all too busy looking outward, away from the storm brewing inside. He entered a sealed chamber. 8 former officers waited. Some had retired. Others had vanished quietly when the war began. All of them had once commanded legions. "They're still escalating," said Admiral Urin, tapping a feed from orbit. "Kael'thar has authorized Operation Sovereign Flame." "He's lost," Keln said simply. "Total orbital strike," said a grim-faced colonel. "He plans to wipe out the cities, glass the surface." "He won't succeed," Keln replied. "And if he does, the retaliation won't come from Earth. It will come from the collapse of everything we are." The silence that followed was suffocating. In orbit, Kael'thar stood over the command console aboard the Vindicator. Gone was his pristine uniform, now wrinkled and sweat-stained. His voice cracked as he barked orders, but no one dared point it out. "Ready all orbital lances. Primary targets, urban zones. Civilian centers. Psychological shockwave. Confirmed, Lord Commander. Charges are primed. Countdown, 60 standard seconds." From space, Earth spun below, serene, cloud-covered, oblivious. But it wasn't. They were waiting. At T-minus 30 seconds, something shifted in the command interface. An alert. A ripple in the magnetic field. Then impact. The Vindicator buckled violently. Alarms screamed. Consoles exploded in sparks. The viewing screen flickered as a high-velocity object tore through orbital debris and struck the outer hull with pinpoint accuracy. A railgun round, fired from somewhere on Earth's surface. Not a missile. Not plasma. Pure kinetic force, launched from under the Pacific Ocean. It had traveled through atmosphere, gravity, and silence, and found its mark. The bridge cracked down the middle. Kael'thar was thrown to the floor. Half his crew dead in an instant. His last words were a whisper. "They're not supposed to have that." Then the forward hull blew open, and the Vindicator ceased to exist. The remaining fleet fractured. Some ships panicked and jumped to FTL. Others surrendered. Some opened random fire on Earth's surface, then vanished into the void before retribution could arrive. The command structure evaporated. Orders stopped coming. Soldiers dug themselves into holes buried by chaos. Officers turned off their comms. Captains abandoned orbit. The war wasn't over. It had simply collapsed under its own weight. On Earth, humanity didn't cheer. They didn't respond. They didn't advance. They just waited, quiet, deliberate, still. There was no parade. No broadcasted victory. Only silence. 2 weeks later, Imperial cartographers redrew the official galactic map. A bright red sphere now hovered around Sol's system. Do not enter. And non-compliance equals terminal loss. No explanation given. No details shared. Whispers spread across outer colonies. Earth broke the Empire. Earth didn't even leave its planet. They don't want to conquer. They want to be left alone. Keln Vorik sat in the ruins of an old archive, watching dust curl in sunlight. Across from him, a young cadet from the internal fleet approached cautiously. You're him, the cadet said. The one who warned them. I warned everyone, Keln said. They chose ambition over sense. The cadet hesitated. What now? Keln handed him a data crystal. The record of the Earth War. Uncensored. Don't let them erase it again. Why give it to me? Because you're young, Keln said. You still believe in learning. The cadet turned to leave. Before he exited, he asked, Did they ever respond? The humans? Keln smiled faintly. In their own way. Aboard a trade station far from any conflict zone, a signal arrived. Not encrypted. Not demanding. Just music. A jazz tune, played on a trumpet, fuzzy from analog recording. No message. No coordinates. No threat. But every Imperial listening station logged it. Every commander heard it. Every soldier paused. It wasn't war. It was a reminder. We're still here. In a quiet memoir titled The One War We Lost, Keln wrote, They do not conquer. They outlast. They bury their past in stone and fire, and build anew atop ashes. We thought them a species scrambling for survival. They were a civilization that survived its own apocalypse, and chose madness over surrender. We brought fleets. They brought silence. We shouted. They whispered. And we listened only when it was too late. Let this be a lesson not about power, but perception. The most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to play by your rules. He ended his journal with a single line. We mistook quiet for weakness. That was our last mistake.